I've been a huge fan of the Wheel of Time for over 20 years now. I read the series for the first time back in high school before it was even finished. Then I read it again about a year outside of high school because I was bored and I really wanted something to do. And then I listened to the series when I was working an overnight job that was incredibly boring and I just needed something to occupy my time. So that's a really long way of saying I've read the series 3 times. I absolutely love it. And I would like to talk about some very interesting little known facts about the Wheel of Time. This is going to have a lot of spoilers. They're little known facts, but they also spoil a crap ton of the series, so you've been warned. There is so much depth in this series. Jordan used everything from the Bible to modern literature as inspiration for his writing. And he also used the entire span of human history as inspiration for his world. This is not going to be one of the facts in the list, but I do want to mention that Randland, which is what most people refer to the whole world that the Wheel of Time takes place in, is probably Earth in a previous age. It's really interesting. Or it's an age that takes place way after us. It's kind of left to your interpretation to figure out. So you probably saw from the title that I chose 7 facts. Why did I choose 7 facts? Well, 7 is less than 10, which makes my job easier. And 7 is also an important number in the series. So let's make that my first fact. Why is 7 so important in the Wheel of Time? 7 has always been a special number in our world, which is one of the reasons why I think Robert Jordan used it in his world. So let's break this down. We have 7 Ajas, 7 ages, and 7 days of the week. Rand, Matt, Avienda, and Moraine spent 7 days in Rudian. There are 7 towers of Malkir, which hold a special place in my heart, and probably lands as well. And probably the most important one, there were 7 seals on the Dark One's prison. Robert Jordan had a degree in physics that he got from the Citadel, and the math he used to explore what reality is made of was probably a really big influence on his world building. Can we take a minute to appreciate the fact that the Citadel is a military college? Like, that is the most badass name ever for a military college, and if I put it in a work of fantasy, someone would tell me that it was too on the nose. But in real life, we have a military college called the Citadel. How freaking cool is that? Does anyone else remember that time that a group of channelers used an ancient tool of punishment to nerf themselves? Oh, you don't? Well, let's talk about it. The oath rod used by the Aes Sedai to swear their 3 oaths was originally known as the binding rod, and it was used to punish criminals. It would basically force someone to not commit their crimes anymore because they're compelled by the oath they made. It was recovered after the breaking of the world by the Aes Sedai, and for some reason they're like, hey, we should use this thing. Not sure really what it does, but it makes you not lie and stuff. Like, I'm being sarcastic, but I know why they swear their oaths on the rod, but I still find it incredibly stupid. I was hoping by the end of the series, some of them would just be like, no, I'm not doing that. But, you know, it's hard to fight against the weight of 1,000 years of customs. Not to mention how violent the Aes Sedai have been toward the women that don't swear oaths. One thing that they talk about in the series is the oath rod shortens the lifespan of the people who swear an oath on it. Until now, that didn't matter because the Aes Sedai had a monopoly on the one power. But what's going to happen now? Now that they aren't the sole magic users on the continent, they're going to get surpassed really quickly by the Ashaman and the Aes Sedai trained sea folk. They don't swear oaths, which means that they're going to live probably twice as long as the Aes Sedai. So within about 100 to 150 years of the defeat of the Dark One, you're going to see advances that the Ashaman and the Sea Folk can make that the Aes Sedai can't touch because all of their most experienced magic users are going to be dying of old age. And I think that's seriously going to nerf the Aes Sedai's hold on power as time goes on. Oh, and the other thing, the Black Aja can break their oaths. So the only people that are really being nerfed are the actual honest Aes Sedai. And it just seems incredibly dumb at this point. Now that you know that the Black Aja exists, you could maybe have people swear oaths and then admit whether or not they're a dark friend. And then you can just be like, okay, you can get rid of the oath now, though. It's cool. But to leave them trapped under that and intentionally nerf themselves is so stupid. I tend to look at the Aes Sedai as the Wheel of Time equivalent of the CIA. They created a monopoly on the use of the one power and then used it to meddle in the affairs of sovereign nations to maintain their power. Sometimes I think they did more harm than good. The Black Aja were there the entire time manipulating them, and I don't think they could have done that if the use of magic was decentralized it would have been a lot harder for them to manipulate world events the way they did. Speaking of the Aes Sedai meddling and being manipulated by the Black Ogier, let's move on to fact number 3. Have any of you heard of the Vileness? I hadn't until I started doing research for this video. The Vileness was a 6-year period after the dragon had been reborn, where the Black Ogier tortured and killed 2 Amyrlins and 50 fellow Aes Sedai in an attempt to find where the dragon had been reborn. When that didn't work, they went out with the Red Ogier and committed genocide against male channelers. Basically, any man or boy that was rumored to be like incredibly lucky or have weird circumstances around them, or even a whiff of suspicion about channeling, they just killed them. They ended up killing nearly 10,000 men and boys. The keeper of the chronicles at the time was a member of the Black Ogier, so she just used all of the tower's intelligence and sniffed out a bunch of men, and with the help of other people in the Black Ogier, they conned the Red Ogier into murking all these innocent dudes, and I'm going to guess a fair amount of them weren't channelers. It's just incredible that it even happened. Tom, of all people, was the one to expose the events to Elida when she was advisor for Queen Morgase. He did it after finding out that his nephew Owen was gentled without a trial in direct violation of Tower law. The Red Ogier had been publicly outing male channelers, gentling them, and then letting the community kill or ostracize them. Talk about a good way to get around the oath about not killing people. That seems like a totally reasonable thing to do. After he exposed the events, the tower purged all the leadership of the Red Ogier and covered up that it even happened. Most Aes Sedai didn't even know that this had happened. You know, another totally reasonable thing that an organization would do. A huge cover-up of genocide. Let's move on to something a little happier. Let's talk about some of my favorite people in the series. The Ogier. Did you know that they are not from the planet of Randland? They are from a parallel world, which is different than a mirror world. So the mirror world is the thing that Rand saw when he was a Lanfear, when he touched that obelisk thing and he saw all his lives and stuff. Those are mirror worlds that are a reflection of the world that he is in. It's like what the world could have been. But what I'm talking about are parallel worlds, other worlds that run parallel to Randland and to that timeline. And the Ogier are from one of those. They use the Book of Translation to teleport themselves here. Another theory is that the reason why the steadings nullify all magic is because it is a piece of the world the Ogier came from, and the true source doesn't exist there. It's super interesting. At one point in the book, there's a huge debate about whether or not the Ogier should open the Book of Translation again. And the reason they're debating that is because they were debating leaving the plane of existence, just going back where they came from. They're like, oh, wow, this world's about to end. We should probably leave. It's just crazy. Also, speaking of crazy, this quick aside, when I first learned about the Gardeners, I just about shit myself. Ogier are scary enough when angry, but the thought of a group of them broken and trained by the Seanchan is the stuff of nightmares. It really goes to show how dehumanizing the Seanchan Empire is. They turned some of the most peaceful people in the world into monsters. I use the term dehumanizing because I don't know if a word exists for that concept when it involves other sapient races. Their perversion of everything good left me hating them for most of the series. In early drafts of the Eye of the World, there was another boy that left Emond's Field with the Ta'veren 3. You can see him in the art for the book. I'll post it right now. It was Daniel Lewin, who plays a major role in Perrin's story. He helps Perrin rescue the prisoners taken by the Children of Light in the Two Rivers. He goes with him to Caemlyn, and he escorts the rebel Aes Sedai to Perrin when he is on his way to rescue Rand from the White Tower Aes Sedai. He's also there for Perrin during all his trials and tribulations in the books most people refer to as the Slog. He was going to be one of the Ta'veren after Jordan's wife and editor, Harry McDougall, pointed out how boring it was to have a member of the group do very little until, I guess, around book 5 is when he planned on really using Daniel. She convinced him to pull him from the manuscript. I think it's really cool that we get this kind of behind-the-scenes info, and it makes the series even more rewarding to read when you dig into the things that were cut or changed. I think it adds extra context to what is actually there in the story. Let's take a quick look at a small tidbit that almost everyone, myself included, missed. Almen Bunt, the farmer that carries Mat and Rand into Caemlyn in the Eye of the World, has his own chapter in the Towers of Midnight. He is at his sister's apple orchard, trying to figure out why her entire crop has just like withered and rotted in a single night. He sniffs the fruit and senses that it smells wrong. It is definitely the touch of the Dark One reaching into the world. Then there's a break in the cloud cover and the trees begin to blossom and fruit. Almen also feels at peace and his hip pain recedes as a man gets closer to the orchard. Next, he speaks to the man up close and recognizes that it is Rand. Here's the quote from the book. "That voice, those eyes, like gray gemstones cut and set in his face. I do know you," Almen said, remembering an odd pair of youths he had given a lift in his cart years ago. Rand tells him to pick the fruit before nightfall, and Almen takes off to tell his family and friends to get going and start picking. As he does so, he can feel himself being pulled toward Rand as Rand walks away. His destiny has obviously begun to pull everyone toward the last battle. The way Jordan and then Sanderson managed to build up the final books is just stunning. A small scene like this just oozes with hope while still keeping the reader grounded in the dread of the Dark One's power and the imminent last battle. I freaking love it. All this talk about genocide and the final battle and all these tragic things, I want to end this on a light note that is also the most important little known fact and was the inspiration for this entire video. The Seanchan speak in a Texan accent. This holds a special place in my heart now that I know it. Can you imagine a people that are a mix of Western European and Asian descent speaking like Texans? I mean, I can because I live in the state, and contrary to what a lot of people think, the state is very diverse. In The Shadow Rising, Suroth has a great quote relevant to the rest of the series that hits way harder when spoken in the correct accent. Let me see if I can get this right. Usually it takes a few Mexican loggers before I can summon my Texan accent with full force. On the heights, the paths are paved with daggers. And if you don't like that, how about Furik Kharid discussing his role in the world? Kharid was Dokavile and proud of it. Like every man of the guard, the property of the Crystal Throne, body and soul. He fought where the Empress pointed and would die the day she said die. See? So much better. I know a lot of people are going to think it's absolutely ridiculous that the Seanchan speak in a Texan accent, but you know what? Robert Jordan said it. I'm going to believe it. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope to make another one eventually. I love the Wheel of Time, and it holds a very special place in my heart. It is the foundation that my love of fantasy has been built on. If you have any little known Wheel of Time facts, let me know in the comments. And with that, I'll see you next time.